welcome back to the Wargaming Den. Another game of Kings of War this week. We've got a couple of new armies for you this time. My Orcs are taking on Gordon's Nightstalkers. The mission we're going to be playing is Invade, and as usual we're playing at 2,000 points. Let's take a look at my new Orc army. This is actually their second game. They got absolutely trounced last week against Gordon in their first outing and made a couple of minor changes, but it's pretty similar overall to the first list I took. So I've got two Great Axe regiments. Maybe I should try Horde in future for the higher nerve, but two regiments gives me lots of flexibility in maneuvering and stuff, and they're both quite powerful in their own right. And I have a Orcs regiment that my plan is to tuck those in behind the Great Axe as a second wave. Two Gore Rider regiments. I had three last week, but I've downgraded one to a troop and given them the skirmisher boots, hoping that I can whiz up a flank, use the nimble to turn and start putting pressure on that way. We will see. Only one war drum. Maybe I should have two, would be more sensible, but they're not cheap. You know, I look at it as a bit of a nerve tax. You know, 80 points to increase your rallying isn't cheap, so I've decided to try one because I always try and squeeze out a few extra regiments and things. I've taken a Crudger on foot. He's got the banner of Abbottshire, which is to try and mitigate some of the spell casting. It gives a spell ward aura, and he also has Gakamax Bloody Banner, which means that my Great Axe and Morax regiments have a +1 wild charge, which means that the Morax can charge up to 14 inches and the Great Axe 11. I've got a Crusher on a Gore with a slashing blade. His mission, should he choose to accept it, is to charge out and try and damage spellcasters or flyers and mitigate those threats if I can. And the new centerpiece to the army, which I painted up this week, is my Wing Slasher. Really happy with the way he's turned out and look forward to his first battle tonight. And I've taken a couple of units of allies out of my Ogre army. I've got a Boomer Horde. I'm not really sure I can live in an army without any shooting options. I like the shooting part of the game. And they're boosted and supported by Warlock, who has lightning bolts. I've got a total of 12 units and 21 unit strength. Right, now let's have a look at Gordon's army. Gordon's just painted up himself a new Nightstalkers army, which I think he may be taking to no surrender in about 4 weeks' time. Not the army that he wants to field quite yet. He's got 4 hordes of scarecrows that he wants to fit into this list, and I'm not really sure how I'm going to deal with those, truth be told. Had one game against these guys last week and they absolutely slaughtered my Orcs. I really had no answer to all their lightning bolts and spells. First time really faced such a spellcaster heavy list, and Gordon, even though he's still getting the hang of how to use all the various units, gave me a bit of a lesson on the use of Wind Blast and Enthrall. So I made a couple of changes, as I said, to my list this week to try and add in some spell mitigation to a degree. Anyway, his list is 2 Butcher Hordes. One of them's got Pipes of Terror that gives dread. He's got 3 Mind Screechers that sit in the middle and fire 18 lightning bolts, which are not fun to face at times. He's got a Fiend Horde, and he's given them the Brew of Sharpness to make them more effective in combat. 2 Soulflower Regiments. One has the Blessing of the Gods, the other has Chant of Hate. We're expecting there to be a few changes to the Soulflower, or points increase maybe with the next Clash of Kings update. He's got a Dread Fiend just to be a pain in the butt. He's given it the Trickster's Wand to turn off spellcasting from his opponents. He's got a Banshee who's got the Resonant Chorus, so can cast 2 spells per round, and the Zephyr Crown, which adds +3 dice to the Wind Blast, I think it is. So can cast Wind Blast twice with 8 dice each, and they do wounds. The Banshee is quickly becoming public enemy #1. And then, just for fun, he's added a Sentra, the Wailing Shadow, who also casts Enthrall and then beats things up in combat. He's got a nice 1-2 punch happening with a Sintra and the Mind Screechers that he's starting to use quite well. So small powerful army here, 11 units, 17 unit strength, lots of spellcasters, but the combat of the list can also pack a hell of a punch as well. I think he's looking at changing the Butcher Hordes out once he gets the Scarecrows up and running, but I'm sure there'll be a few other minor tweaks to it, but it's a very, very solid list already. And I've now faced it twice, getting a bit of a feel for what the capabilities of his units are, but it is small, it is hard hitting, and it's a fun army to use, and a bit of a challenge to face, but I've enjoyed the challenge so far. So anyway, let's have a look at this week's game. Let's have a look at this week's deployment. The mission we're playing is Invade. Gordon deployed with his character behind the building here. Soul Flayers in behind the Mind Screechers. He deployed back a bit out of range of my lightning bolt casters apart from his Mind Screechers. He's got the Dread Fiend in here. Banshee wasn't deployed at that stage, I think, but was tucked in here. More Soul Flayers, then his hard hitting infantry out wide over here. I tried to have a bit more of a compact deployment. I ended up throwing my Gore Riders as the last unit down, I think out wide to try and flank around here maybe. Boomers and the Warlock, their mission is to walk into the Valley of Death and hopefully not be dead before they can do something to deal with the Mind Screechers. Wing Slasher hoping to use his mobility to do the same, charge them. I've got the Crusher in here offering support to the infantry. I've got the 2 Great Axe in the front with the Orcs in behind. Whips tucked in between them. Then I've got the Crusher. He's going to act as chaff potentially. And I've got 2 units of Gore Riders here. So a bit more compact deployment from me. Let's get on, have a look at turn 1. Turn 1 for the Orcs. I won the dice roll and decided to go first and needed to try and close the gap as quickly as I could. I was pretty worried about these Mind Screechers. Wanted to try and hold here for a bit if I could, so I refused to flank with the Orc Gore Riders. Push forward the Great Axe as far as I could with the Morax and behind them. The Boomers move forward, double move forward with the Warlock in support and the Crusher in behind them, and my Gore Riders out wide. Slightly misjudged it, so I wasn't able to do a double move and use the nimble to come around that way, so I decided to just pop in behind the wood instead. So not much from me. A couple of lightning bolts from here and also over here with whip, and I managed to put a couple of wounds on one of the Mind Screechers. So just trying to get across the table as quickly as I could to cut down on some of that lightning bolt and another spell malarkey that I was about to face. And what did the Nightstalkers do in response? They moved forward through the woods with the butchers. They've got the fiends coming out wide there. The soul flayers stayed back. I think he pushed forward a wee bit maybe with that dread fiend. The Banshee and the Mind Screechers concentrated on the boomers and managed to waver the boomers. My Orc General on a Wing Slasher, he got pushed back by that annoying Banshee, took a few wounds because of that, but as it turned out was too far away from the boomers after that little shenanigans, and so ended up pushing back the Warlock and doing some wounds there as well. So already starting to pay the price for those blimmin' wind blast spells that are everywhere in this list. And Essen Share, whoever she is, snuck up in here behind the wood, and she was going to be a right royal pain in the butt all game. So Not too much action on turn 1, but let's have a look now at what happens in turn 2. As you can see, I managed to get myself into a bit of bother as per usual. I continued to hold with the Gore Riders here, moved the other Gore Riders out across here. Their flank was potentially a wee bit exposed, but I think I was close to being out of range. Pushed up the Great Axe here with the War Drum in behind. The War Drum's got a good circle to make use of that rallying. Whip is over here, and he had been, the trickster wanted hexed him last turn. So not only is Gordon just blasting with all kinds of spells, he's using sneaky shenanigans to cut down my very limited response, because I've only got Whip and the Warlock able to lightning bolt and do other spells and stuff. Push the Gores into the woods here um, to to put a wee bit of pressure on, hoping if I was there next turn to be able to charge out at the mine screeches. Boomers were wavered, obviously. Pushed the slash around this way a wee bit more. Wasn't really sure what to do with him. I'd been pushed out of range of the mine screeches, which was a tad annoying. So yeah, those wind blasts were already starting to dictate some of my maneuvers and stuff. But I've got the Great Axe here. I've got the Morax tucked in behind as a counterattack force, and here's my little Crudger with Gakamax banner, and he's using the spell ward around this area to try and minimize the amount of incoming fire. The boomers and the warlocks aren't covered by the aura because they're allies, so not much from me this turn, just trying to get in position to try and set myself up for some charges in the next turn or two. But after playing the elves, just stomping forwards and hoping for the best, it takes a wee bit of getting used to. And Gordon's response was swift and brutal. So the soul flayers came charging in at my Gores here. The Dread Fiend charged into my Great Axe over here. I'd blocked myself with a sneaky maneuver here that was more good luck than good management. My Crusher, I got him to in a position which protected the Great Axe, and it was mainly because I wanted to try and set myself up to charge. But as you can see here, Mr. Higgledy Pickledy has maneuvered his mind screeches to make sure that flanks were the option for me, but that I wasn't going to be able to charge them in the flanks and stuff. So he was just being a bit sneaky, was Gordon, but that's what we expect from him. He's very good at the game. Pushed up here with one of the butcher regiments and the other butcher regiment, and the soul flayers charged in to one of my Great Axe regiments here. So turn 2, lots of combats already. It is pretty brutal. And here you can see just a bit of a close-up of the soul flayers and the butchers charging into my orcs. However, my orcs aren't really orcs. These are actually the Frostgrave gnolls that I'm using as the basis of my orc army. Very happy with the way they turned out, but unfortunately they're not going to be around for very long, I don't think. And here we have the result. I lost the Great Axe here, I lost the Warlock, I lost the Boomers, and off in the woods out of sight I also lost the troop of Gore Riders. So in turn 2 I lost 4 units, which was not what I was expecting at all, but the combination of spells and things really hit me hard. And here is that Essenshara character, and what she did is, I think a few lightning bolts came from the mine screeches. Then she did enthrall, which dragged the boomers or the warlock, can't remember which it was now, into her, and then she got to attack and finish them off. So a really good 1-2 combination there from Gordon. So very effective turn 2 for Gordon's Nightstalkers. And here we have my response on my turn 3. So I charged the Winged Slasher into the Banshee, wanted to get rid of her. She's a real pain in the butt. Charged the Crusher in here against one of the Mind Flayers. Had to do a few shenanigans in this area here. I started by charging the Morax into the Butchers and supported them with the Gore Riders from out wide, and that opened up the space that allowed me to charge the other Gore regiment in here supporting the Great Axe against the Dread Fiend. And the war drum also charged in against the Soul Flayers just to try and slow them down a wee bit, and because I needed to get the war drum out of the way for some of those other charges. So let's see how the combats went. And it was a pretty successful turn 3 for me. I destroyed the Dread Fiend, I killed the Butchers, the Winged Slasher destroyed the Banshee, and also the Crusher took out the Mind Screech. So I managed to take out 4 units as well. So we've just lost 8 units between us. So this game is not going to last very long the way it's going. And Gordon's response was quite predictable in some ways. He threw the Fiends and the Butchers into the Gore Riders, destroyed them, threw the Soul Flayers into my other regiment of Great Axe and destroyed them. This is where I got lucky down here. The other Soul Flayers came charging in at the War Drum, managed to do 7 wounds, and Gordon rolled a 3 for his nerve test. So the War Drum survived by the skin of its teeth. But again, I'm losing units, and I'm now at the end of the turn I'm down to some Gore Riders, the Morax, the Winged Slasher, and a few characters. So I'm really running out of units quickly at this stage. And here we have my turn 4. The Crusher charged into the Soul Flayers, didn't do enough damage on them. The Gore Riders charged in here, killed that unit of Soul Flayers. The Morax charged the Butchers, and I think I was 1 short of what I needed to destroy them, which meant that the Morax were about to be flanked by the Fiends there. I was trying to turn off the Mind Screechers using my Crusher to do that, and I think I managed to do it this turn. And down here we've still got that annoying little character flying around causing all kinds of mischief. So not much in the way of unit strength left for me, and at this stage I thought things were looking a wee bit grim, that I was well and truly starting to be outnumbered when it came to unit strength. And so here we have it. Predictably enough, the Morax got slaughtered by the Butchers and the Fiends. I think I took a couple more lightning bolts from the Mind Screechers at my Winged Slasher, and then a Essentra used her tractor beam ability to enthrall the Slasher into her, and then she attacked him as well. So that's a good combination that Gordon is becoming quite proficient with. So into turn 4, things are not looking so flash for the Orcs when it comes to unit strength. I've got unit strength 1 here, 3 here, and the Wing Slasher. So I've only got 6 unit strength. The Soul Flayers are almost destroyed from memory, and so are the Butchers. They're both pretty badly injured. So my next turn I need to take those 2 out and see how we go from there. But both armies have taken a real battering so far in this game. In my turn 5, I managed to kill the Soul Flayers, and also whatever was over here were the Butchers, maybe. So that swung things again a wee bit more in favour of me. But as you can see, Gordon's just starting his move, and he's still got plenty of options. Not ideal. The Gore Riders were charged in their rear by one of the Mind Screechers, but because of the high armour, only took a couple of wounds. I think that's one of the turns where Gordon got really unlucky with his dice rolls and really rolled under the curve. My turn 6, charged in here, charged away from the Mind Screech and took out the Fiends. I was wavered over here, so it didn't do anything, but it did mean that on turn 6 I had 3, 4, 5 unit strength to 2. Unfortunately though, Gordon rolled for a turn 7. And after another brutal turn, at the end of turn 7, Gordon's left with a Mind Screech and a Sinshara, whoever she is, is there, sorry. I'm left with a War Drum, which is pretty much bang on halfway through good luck rather than good management. I've got a Cruncher, and I've got Whip, and I've got the Crusher. But we've only got 1 unit strength left each. So after a very, very brutal and bloody game, the result is a draw. And there you have it. The game ended in a very, very bloody draw. Hard fought game. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Those Nightstalkers are nasty. It's not the list that Gordon eventually wants to take, but it's really flexible. I'm not used to facing that many spellcasters and just getting pushed here and shoved there and lightning bolted there. I really have to try and get in close and tackle some of the spellcasting units, and didn't always do that successfully. My boomers and my warlock, the ogre allies I'm using, they got absolutely smashed on turn 1 and 2. Didn't do much at all. I think the warlock might have got 2 or 3 wounds with a lightning bolt at one stage, but the boomers were just blasted off the table, didn't get anywhere near. Quite liked having the Great Axe regiments. I will try a horde probably at some point, but points wise, the regiments are very similar to the price of the Palace Guard for the they are the same price as the Palace Guard for the elves, and kind of fulfill a similar role for me. Bit more flexibility with having the 2 regiments, and having the Morax regiment tucked in behind as a second wave also worked quite well. But yeah, I was feeling more comfortable this game than the first game against the Nightstalkers, where I really didn't have much of an idea of what many of the units did at all. But man, they hit hard. But then the Orcs proved to be reasonably resilient as well. So it was a good, fun game, as they always are. But 2 very, very different armies when it comes to play styles. So not sure next week's game whether I'm going to take the Orcs or I might give the Elves a crack. We've got a tournament coming up in Christchurch, or a Kings of War weekend in about a month's time, and I'm still very keen to probably take the Elves up because I didn't have a chance to use them at Oamaru Onslaught a few weeks back. But anyway, enough waffling for me. Thanks for watching. Sorry that wasn't any video on this one. A wee bit tired after work and just wanted to do a nice simple game, so that's why it was just a few photos. But I hope it gave you a bit of an idea of the game. Thanks for watching. Ka kite anō, and we'll catch you next time.